everybody. I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, and I am joined by so many merry people. Chloe Thomas, George Dymowski, Gallant, Patrick McCray. We're here to do Dark Shadows episode number 915. We're talking about the Leviathans. Real quick, this was written by Gordon Russell, directed by Henry Kaplan. So yeah, grades. So they're basically, and I got to give credit to Gordon, they're somewhat small rebooting the Leviathan arc here.
I think this was probably Gordon Russell's best payday for writing a script, since he had to do it under duress and very quickly.
Yeah, this was filmed on Christmas Eve of 1969, and it was out of sequence too. Because
it was out of sequence because of makeup and various other things that they had to do for the dream sequence. And yeah, you can see though we're versing into a time where editing is now more possible and economical, which is 1970. Before this, it was like razor blade.
Yeah, and I'm going to take issue with Jules' comment about this being a reboot. It's really not a reboot of the Leviathan storyline. I think it's more like, oh, we forgot to write this, because at the time, they production-wise, they were doing extra episodes to catch up, and I think because audience feedback was so negative, I think they needed to go, okay,
it's redirecting.
Yeah. So I don't think it's like, okay, we're changing everything. I think it's like, okay, we've been writing, but we need to fill the audience in on some of what's going on.
So let me ask you just a pedestrian question. When they were doing these extra episodes to catch up, were they done on Saturdays, or were they doing 2 episodes a day, or what?
They were doing 6 days a week, so I'm assuming they were doing them on Saturdays.
Wow.
And they did this more than once, by the way, because remember they had a strike early actually they had a strike before Fred, and then they had another strike, and then they had the week-long hiatus from switching over to color in August of '67. There was a lot going on at that point in time. They had an after strike before Fred, and then a NABET, which was the tech strike after he was in. That was the one they fined everybody for, and Curtis ended up paying all the fines, except for the 2 people that wouldn't cross the line. He fired them.
Who was that? Was that
Bob Geringer was one of those people. Yeah. And the other one was the caretaker. I forget his name. The original caretaker also got fired.
So here's my first question for you guys. Ladies first, so Chloe first. What did you make before they make the somewhat change here, before they add this? What did you make of Barnabas being a heel again?
Well, I like how menacing he became when he was under their so-called influence, because Fred cannot do any wrong in my eyes. I'm sorry, but he is just such a magnificent actor, so it really didn't bother me. But I felt it was dragging on a bit too long. Like, when is he going to break out of this and get out of this, so we can get on to the end of the story? Because I did feel I liked the Leviathan storyline, but I did feel it dragged on a little bit too long.
I kind of agree with you on that, but I think we're in the minority, at least, especially if you go back to the original broadcast, because a lot of people were really upset with the fact that Fred was being portrayed as a villain.
Right, that's true.
That was one of the big objections that a lot of people writing into the soap magazines and various other, writing into ABC, they had those. And that's why this episode is often referred to as the emergency episode, because it was okay, we got to take a left turn here. We've got to get back into the formula, the successful formula that the fans are crying for, which is sympathetic Barnabas, savior of the family kind of thing.
Right.
even if he does bite people occasionally. We want to see that,
Right.
So yeah, I thought it was interesting though. I thought it was an interesting jump. It was a risk to take to make him into. They could have made him into an automaton, but instead they made him like, I like this,
Yeah,
I like
right.
being a Leviathan. And that was an interesting and definitely a risk.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought there were a lot of good episodes in that. I thought there was a lot of good, culture building and tension building for that particular storyline. But you're right. I mean, at least in my estimation, I feel the same way. It went on a bit too long and started to wear thin. The horror impact of the child that grows up to become an adult in mere weeks,
Right.
which is actually sort of it's almost a satire on what they actually did on regular soap operas. With oh, baby Johnny's born, and
Right.
within a year he's 17 years old. It's
Right.
But yeah,
Gordon.
Well, I do appreciate what they were trying to do was to kind of get him back into like not being as evil, but I would argue that the Barnabas in the Leviathan, at the inner part of the Leviathan, was completely in character because 2 years before, what did he do? He kidnapped someone, kept her in his basement, and was trying to basically gaslight her into pretending she's someone he isn't.
Yeah, he killed and strangled a few people, as well as a bunch of hapless cows at that point in time. So he was not exactly a nice guy.
Yeah.
But again, that was before all the fan mail started showing up.
Right. And I think even when he was at his most heroic, I think there's still a ruthlessness and a kind of practicality about it.
Oh yeah.
He's not noble. The only thing noble is his suffering for Josette. But I think the Leviathan storyline, kind of helped with. I get the sense that writers are trying to go for that kind of body snatchers, like you don't know who your ally is.
Sure.
I think with Barnabas, that makes sense. That kind of okay, we're going to make him evil and a lot more like he was earlier. I think it makes sense from a storytelling perspective. I'm just not sure because of the way production was at that time. I'm not sure the writers ever really. I don't think they could have put it. I think they had the ideas about how Barnabas should be evil, but they never really were able to. Because the Leviathan, I think the Leviathan storyline's okay, but I just think there hadn't been the amount of thought that had been put into, say, 1897, where it's figuring out, okay, what do we do next?
Yeah, and they didn't have as much Violet Wells in the mix either, I don't think, for the Leviathan storyline, which I think makes a huge difference. And that's all credit going to Gordon Russell, too, because he was a fine writer, and Sam Hall is a fine writer. But there was something about the stuff that she was doing, especially when she was getting full credit for episodes.
Yeah.
Which she had been doing ghosting episodes for, I guess, a year before she was actually brought on officially. Because Gordon Russell knew her and say, hey, I've got 3 episodes this week. Can you do one for me? That kind of thing was going on.
I believe this is also the arc where they're in talks to bring back Alexandra Moltke, but she doesn't come back.
How are they going to bring her back?
Yeah, how are they going to bring her back?
I don't know.
Maybe they were gonna foment a relationship with Jeb like they did with Carolyn. I mean, that's a possibility.
Because she wanted to come back as a bad guy.
And they
the heel.
Curtis wouldn't have it.
Yeah, so, Curtis wouldn't have.
You are my intellectual property. I will not change you that way. It's kind of like that. But yeah,
Patrick, what did you think?
There's always been theories that he kills the character off several times as if is like he's stomping on a cockroach or something, like in revenge for her not coming back. I never bought that a bit. I don't think, and I don't think she would have cared. She was starting a brand new life. Yeah, I'll come back if you make it interesting for me, but I have a new child and a new marriage and all this other stuff's going on. I don't think, and she was also from very, very well-bred families, and her husband was an investment banker, so they were fabulously wealthy as well. So she didn't have to do it.
Patrick, what did you think of villain Barnabas again here in the Leviathan arc?
It's a terrible idea. I think it's a terrible idea. I think it's just shit.
Fans agree with you.
From anus to flush. I think it's a shit concept. I
Taint.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. What has been the lesson since 1967? That Barnabas makes a better hero than villain, but he's a hero with villainous tendencies, which means he has more choices at his disposal as to how to solve a problem.
Right.
What a wonderful character. Instead they just give him gray temples and make him a bad guy. I guess so Quentin will look better, or so Jeb can be something else, something like that. And I'm not buying it.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was dopey. It felt like putting on your shoes on the wrong feet.
Well,
it just did not take.
And also, I thought that they terribly under and misused the character of Quentin Collins too.
Oh yeah, they have no idea what to do with him.
They didn't have any.
Well, he had amnesia.
Yeah, but I mean, after he came back, he was kind of a bystander for the longest time until he figured out, the Greek mythology angle, and that was kind of cool for a little while. But
but it didn't go far.
No, it didn't. It didn't.
So, but what do you? This is the thing. Is what do you do with an immortal? This is not a lot. You can only surround him with people who will suffer, and he can do nothing about it. Or drive him crazy. Quentin was getting buried alive every other week.
Yeah, that's true. They figured, well, we'll let Frid be the one who everybody suffers and dies around, and we'll let him be one of the ones that suffers and almost dies. But that's
definitely lilacs.
Expensive lilac. Oh. Yeah.
I think too, the one thing they do really good too is before they have this episode, when Quentin does initially come back and he doesn't remember who he is.
Right.
You have
Douglas.
Grant and Douglas is. You do have where Barnabas hits him with the car.
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Yeah, and you have he decides not to. He thinks about company. He goes, "You helped me so much," and this is sort of where you see the humanity within the Leviathan arc before this episode. So it's like, okay, is Barnabas fully bad here? Probably not.
Well, not at this point. Not. I mean, they do trapdoor it. They say, because they have the lavishly named Pierino Mascarino come on as a Leviathan, and he actually had quite a long career in film and television later on. A true Italian, but I think he was raised in the United States because he had absolutely no trace whatsoever of an Italian accent in this. But he's got a great dramatic voice. But anyway, you have this critter come on and say, I'm going to punish you. I'm going to make you dream a vampire, and I'm going to make you dream that Marcia Mason is down on the docks hot for you, and you're going to bite her and all this other stuff. But then after all of that, they trapdoor the responsibility out, and they say, "This isn't about Julia Hoffman. This is about your obedience."
Right.
So he doesn't have to kill her anyway. So they just kind of like, okay,
this is a loop story because it's nothing really happens. It's a clever way to get exposition out, and you can. I mean, in watching,
it's like getting on. It's like an off ramp. The episode is an off ramp, but not quite off. You're getting off the highway, but you're still on the blue road.
Yeah, I mean, when you watch it in sequence, it makes perfect sense. Which is why I think this is more of one of those. Oops, we forgot to write the scene. We forgot to write this. Let's make sure it's clear, because there's really no. I mean, at the end, when the Leviathan is saying, "Oh, we have Josette in the past," and I would have been like, "Hey, she's 100 years dead. I don't care at this point."
Right.
It's 1970, not 1795.
Right.
I'm calling your bluff.
It's so true. And this is the beginning of the end of the Josette obsession too.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be, the sort of catatonic redhead here coming up.
Oh God, the Jungle Girl.
Well, they also expose the whole ghost thing, like I think in the next episode or so, because when Barnabas comes to Elizabeth, who's a member of the Leviathan, and he says, "Well, let's turn her because they wanted me to kill her," and I said no, and she goes, "Oh, thank goodness you didn't kill her, because if you would have killed her, one of the Leviathan's weaknesses, an angry spirit, an unrestful spirit." It's like, well, so wait a second, this means they can't have Josette then, can it?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to make sense.
Yeah.
Remember, this is going by pretty fast for the viewer, and they're not able to rewind.
This is, I think this is if 1897 is a creative binge where you just do whatever the heck you want, you really deep dive, you love writing in that period. Leviathan is the hangover. It's the how do we top this? What do we do that is interesting? You're also dealing at a time where a lot of these themes of darkness and that kind of conspiracy spirit is already in the culture. So you're trying to figure out, okay, and I really think it's why I think the Leviathan arc isn't as bad as people say, but I also see where this is it really feels like there hadn't been enough planning or enough thinking through of all this. It's like, let's just throw stuff out there. I mean, the one nice thing about this episode is it explains that, okay, like some Leviathans became human, others didn't, because that would explain why, okay, Elizabeth's a Leviathan, but Julia's not.
Jeb is a different kind of Leviathan.
Right.
He can achieve human form in order to move about Collinsport, but he is in fact not human at all. So
and didn't some of the characters, weren't they, like Maggie? She was resistant to it. Do you remember that?
Yeah, and so was Julia. Julia actually looked in the box and nothing happened.
Yeah.
Not everybody is susceptible.
And Quentin must have been resistant to it too, because he kept getting into fist fights with Jeb. I mean,
you guys have a favorite scene in this episode?
No.
Just for sheer atmosphere, I just like the dream sequence thing, and I love seeing Marcia Mason bug-eyed, floating around behind him with fangs in her mouth.
I like the fact that the dream sequences are framed with it's basically just a guy in the vision in the booth just hitting random buttons just to see what'll happen. But this really is not. I don't think there's such a thing as a really bad, horrible episode of Dark Shadows. But I think this is one where it, even taking it out of, even not knowing the context, it really just feels like a complete loop where it's like, okay, we got our half hour in, let's move on.
Yeah, it was rushed. There's no doubt about that. Technically speaking, it was a rushed episode. So yeah, that feel is there. I oftentimes notice new things, of course, when you watch episodes over and over again. You get favorites and so on. But I hadn't seen this one in a long time. And I noticed weird minutia stuff. And in this one, I noticed at the last sequence where they do a quick edit cutaway and he's sitting in the chair sleeping again, and then he wakes up. As he gets up out of the chair from this reverie, they must have done a quick cut, like had him just sit down, and we'll do the cut later, because Audrey the Leviathan girl is behind him in the corner, and you can see her skirt and her leg as he gets up out of the chair. So it's that's classic quick cut studio stuff there for Dark Shadows. So I'd never noticed that before, and I've seen the episode several times.
I have to go watch it again now.
Yeah, it's that last little bit when he gets up out of the chair for the last
Right.
time after he was roused from his dream. And
Well,
yep, she's standing in the corner. She doesn't have. They didn't give her enough time to get off the set. They said, "No, just sit down and we'll go, and then we'll cut out you sitting down." Later.
Yeah, you can also spot the Leviathan guy before Barnabas falls asleep. He's like right behind the curtain.
Oh yeah. They did that all the time. They would darken corners and things and have people pop out of them and have the light come up on them. Yeah, absolutely.
I do love the interaction between the Leviathan member and Barnabas. It's a very heavy conversation. Great acting going on. Patrick, what do you think?
I liked it. Really the what's his name? Calita Priazzo, or what was the
Purino Mascarino.
Yeah. I like the sense of menace and the explanation, the sort of long nonsensical explanation about there was only intelligence and odor,
Yes,
or something like that. That he
no
saying.
form, and he was like
Just
showed disgust
form.
when he said the word form. It's like, ew, we don't like that.
Yeah. I enjoyed that very mythic part of it. I think I like that the most.
Yeah, that's the Lovecraftian stuff coming back in, basically. That sort of semi-inspired a lot of the ideas behind this whole storyline. But yeah, he's also. I thought he did a fantastic job for a day player. I mean, he wasn't nervous or anything else. He was just smooth.
And it was. You got to wonder what's his relationship with Oberon and Haza. I mean, do they have brunch? Do they get together and play Pandemic? What do they do?
Yeah, they're a thruple. They go into the underworld.
I think that could be.
Yeah, they share an apartment, and then
it's like
and then their landlords, the Ropers, are always coming up and disturbing them.
I thought it would be Mr. Furley, but I think they do go back so far it would be the Ropers. Mm-hmm. They were the neighbors beyond time.
Three's Leviathan Company. Yes, there we go.
There you go. Michael Maitland is a lot of fun to watch in this episode too. He's not into the bunch, but
he's again a fine child actor. No sweat. I think he's like 12 or 13 years old here.
Yeah,
and he's wearing a terrible wig because his hair is actually dark brown. So they put him in a blonde wig to keep him consistent with the other Leviathan children, because I guess by this time they must have known that Chris Pennock was going to be the adult. Yeah. So
that would be a first for Mr. Pennock. But seriously, never mind. Chris enjoyed that.
Yes, he was very childlike in his approach to life. Yes.
I do have a question. If anybody knows, did they ever use hair dye in Dark Shadows?
Oh, I'm sure some of the women dyed their hair anyway.
Everything you could do to hair, they did.
As a matter of fact, I think Catherine did a lot of red in her hair at one point.
Yeah. Well, that was a wig. That was really a wig. Yeah, that was a red wig, because I know the guy who bought it, and I to this day
was the whole thing the wig though, or was it like just the fall?
It was the ponytail wig. It was a full wig.
Oh, okay.
Because I seen him wear it.
Okay. Yes, Dark Shadows fans. Okay.
Yeah, and I heard that Dan Curtis used a lot of black hair dye. So
I mean, come on, yeah.
At least later, I'm sure.
Yeah. But
I mean,
they did all sorts of hair things. I mean, at one point early on, they gave Dana Elcar a conch, and that's why he wound up bald. Because he had a wonderful afro. It was very natural. And they decided to straighten it like Little Richard, and it just didn't take.
It fell out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Is there anything you guys want to add before we go?
This is a whirlwind that is the predecessor to the whole sea change, and very, very soon hereafter, well, actually almost immediately, it's Barnabas Collins' secret agent.
Right, which I like.
Yeah.
It's about time.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to thank everybody for participating. Chloe, Gordon, Alan, Patrick. link to Patrick McCray's Dark Shadows Day book Unbound is going to be in the description box. Link to Alan Gallant's YouTube channel Collins Port After Dark is going to be in the description box. Link to Gordon Dymowski's Amazon page is going to be in the description box. You can get all these fine folks on Facebook. Get Chloe Thomas on Facebook as well. Hit her up. She's a big Dark Shadows fan, as is the rest of everybody is here. You folks have a safe night and take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Night all.